Hello and welcome to Horror Rewind. This is Kelly Florence.
And I'm Meg Hostel.
And today we're talking about The Host. Well, Meg, it is June 1st today when we're recording this. And our state, our country, the world has been turned upside down once again with George Floyd's murder. And we just want to start off the podcast by saying, you know, our mission as people and as Horror Rewind is to lift up the voices of diverse women, people of color, and have support inclusivity in, you know, all forms of media, as writers, as humans, as podcasters. We just want to say that right off the bat.
Yeah, and I think that we, as two white women, know that the best thing we can do right now is more listening and just listen to people's experience. And I know I've learned so much by just listening to people of color and what they're telling us. And so that's what we're here to do. And so if there's anything you want to share with us, we are here to listen.
So, you know, it's something that we are, one way that we have found that we can help is just by sharing those resources and donating money to those places that are helping others and helping lift up those voices and seeking justice. And so follow us on our social media to see, we've been sharing some of those resources and places that we found, the people and places that need help.
That's right. Yeah, the world feels really overwhelming right now, and I think that, you know, everybody has a different reaction to it, and some people want to really sort of be on the front lines, and that's awesome. Do that. Maybe you feel more inclined to donate money, or maybe, you know, even just sharing a post on social media can help. But I think that sort of everything that all humans gravitate toward in moments like this is escapism. So we're happy that in our tiny, tiny little way, we can also help by talking about horror movies.
Yes. So speaking of which, the last time we recorded together, we talked about Mother. And we were saying, let's go back and watch The Host, because we had each watched it before, but we thought maybe we'll, you know, look at it a little deeper, or we'll get what all the hype is about. And this is, you know, speaking of what's happening in the world, this was based on a real incident in the year 2000 that happened. And this whole movie has this underlying political commentary, especially about America and just sort of roles of power in society.
Yeah, I mean, just as Bong Joon-ho sort of took on these huge themes in Parasite and Mother, he's doing this again in The Host, and I found it fascinating because I didn't remember most of this movie. I don't know about you, but the very first person who's doing something devious is a white American guy.
Yes.
So I thought that was very interesting, and also happened to be Herschel from Walking Dead. But that's
right.
a side note. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting, and I thought it was profound, and it definitely meant something. Yes,
I agree, and I sort of took that for granted the first time I watched this too, and you know, now I was really watching it with a critical eye, so. I appreciate that. You know, I forgot to, right off the top, to give some of these facts. This movie came out in 2006. It has a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. It had a budget of $11 million and made $89 million at the box office.
Well,
we recognize the star, the father, is the same father from Parasite, so that was fun. He's got this sort of bleached blonde hair in this movie, and it was really endearing. I loved he was saving up all of these coins to try to buy his daughter a new cell phone.
Yeah, that was it was fun to see him. Apparently he's in Snowpiercer too, which I haven't watched yet. Have you seen that movie?
I have, and I really enjoyed it, but I'm going to rewatch that one too.
Yeah, I gotta watch that. I know, again, it has very similar themes, even though I haven't seen it. I've heard what the themes are, but yeah, it was really fun to see him sort of be and younger with the bleached blonde hair, and he's kind of like this I don't know, he's kind of seen as the loser of the family or the fuck up or however you want to say it. But that was fun. And I always like when directors and actors like have that sort of great relationship with each other where they work, you know, in multiple projects together. That always warms my heart. And yeah, they set up right away, you know, it's just like his other films where family dynamics are really at the heart of everything. And so it's set up right away that he's living in this sort of what do they call it, a stand, a food stand?
Yeah.
With his dad and his daughter.
Yes, and wasn't it interesting how, you know, his sister, there was another a sports star plot line. You know, she was an archer, and I love it. Of course, it's going to come back into play, and it was so badass. But just like in Parasite, remember, she was a former sports star. She did shot put. So I just found that really interesting how it was another female sports, you know, star plot line.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't even make that connection. Speaking of connections, since we're talking about it, I wrote down this quote. This is from an article for Vox by Alyssa Wilkinson, and she was talking about the connection between Parasite and the host. So she says, and among Bong's filmography, the host may be the best companion piece to Parasite, something their titles may signal, which I didn't even think about Parasite and the host.
Right.
That they, you know. And then she said, the parasite of Parasite is everyone, the rich, the poor, the whole population trapped in a socioeconomic system that allows them to move through life leeching off one another's labor and wealth. But every parasite needs a host organism and to keep itself alive. You could say that in Parasite, the host is the system. And interestingly enough, one way to read the host is as a movie about a country, Bong's native South Korea, that has attached itself to the United States and its cultural exports. So I thought it was interesting that she was connecting the two films because they seem so far apart in two different worlds. One's very supernatural and one isn't. But I found it fascinating, Parasite and the host, the names themselves, and how they all work to talk about really socioeconomics.
Right. No, totally. And, you know, something else that I felt like he was talking about that, you know, when this creature attacks, and so first of all, the creature exists because this white American dude is just like, nope, we're just going to dump it. I don't care about the people. And this ends up, you know, creating this creature because it keeps mutating. When it attacked, you see people and whether they are fight or flight. And this father is 100% fight. He is going after, he doesn't have to help anybody, but he is helping people even though he doesn't even know them. Like even before his daughter gets involved, he's out there trying to help.
Good point. And there were a couple other people like that too. And then, yeah, you're right. It really did show, which I'm sure is very realistic, of the two sort of responses. And I think for 2006, the monster looks pretty good.
Yeah. That's my one complaint is just the CGI. So
yeah.
I had to like take a step back and realize, okay, it's not going to be up to like what I would want, but you know, I'll get over it for the sake of the plot, and it's worth it for the sake of the plot.
It is. And I think that that's kind of what sucks about CGI because again, for 2006, I think it was pretty good. But again, like that's like a lifetime ago in technology now. So it can kind of like be annoying sometimes.
Something that Bong Joon-ho does a good job with in this movie is playing off of the humor dynamics and the juxtaposition of like when they're in that gym and there's the public mourning and the media is taking pictures of them and they're just, you know, flailing on the ground. But then a guy gets on the microphone, is like reading off a license plate number of somebody who's parked illegally. Like that is dark humor.
It is really dark, and that's not easy, like, to accomplish. And yeah, he does a really good job of like kind of like pointing out the absurdity of everything.
Right.
Because it is all absurd. And it is, you know, we can bring it back to, of course, what's going on right now because it feels like there are these situations where it's a police state.
Right.
And we don't want to believe that we live in that kind of world. I think in Asia, it's a little more obvious. But in America, we live in that situation too, and like now it's kind of becoming more and more clear that we live in a police state. I don't know how you feel about that, but where it's like we're forced to do whatever we're told to do, and there are some things that are good for us, like wearing masks, but then there's other things that are not good for us, and the government is putting their foot down and all of a sudden coming in.
Yes, and speaking of that, it's this interesting subplot of they think that this creature is the host of a deadly new virus, and so anybody who came into contact with it, now they're going to try to quarantine because they think, oh, this is what killed this American soldier, who was the guy like trying to help with that main character. And so they're, being held against their will at the hospital, and then people don't believe that his daughter's still alive and that he, was hallucinating or whatever. But it's like, okay, wait, what's the proof of this? Is there a virus? Isn't there? I mean, of course, we know coronavirus exists, but within the context of this movie, it still sort of feels like, wait, what's the truth? And then speaking of comedy, they have this comedy of them escaping the hospital and this whole just getting out. Like, to balance that, it was just so well done.
Yeah, it was. It's so genre bending. Like, it's just going in all different directions, and you care about these people, and you want so desperately for him to go help his daughter, and also they did a good job of not making this little girl like this helpless Rapunzel up in a tower. Like, she is thinking, she's making plans, she's trying to get out, which I really appreciated because I love to see female ingenuity. And also when she has a little boy, then with her, she is even more sort of galvanized to get out of there. And so I really liked kind of going back and forth and seeing what she was doing too.
No, it was so great. And you just assume, like, oh, she's dead, and eventually, spoiler alert, she does die, but not before she does a lot of heroic things. And
exactly.
And speaking of that little boy too, we get to see, speaking of class, the ultra poor and the homeless who live in the sewer system. Something I read about this movie, they actually filmed in the sewers of South Korea because it was cheaper than, building sets. They really filmed on there, and they all had to get shots for all of these different things that they could catch down there. But can you imagine the smell?
No! Or just like the echo and like the creepy little critters that might come by.
No. So, I mean, I think that just
Wow.
adds to the realism of what they're going through as they're crawling through these sewers, because they were really in sewers.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I wonder if they'd allow that in America.
I can't imagine that they would. Yeah.
Yeah, especially kids.
Right.
Yeah, and like you were saying with the homeless, like he's like, oh, I wish I lived in a food stand.
Yes,
Like,
I know.
that
And to him, like, she was
amazing.
rich. Yeah.
Yeah, yep. And it just kind of shows like also how we're in our own little bubbles and we don't even think about that. And then, yeah, just the idea that like he's trying to get to his daughter, but the government is not allowing him for a unfounded reason, and we find out there is no virus.
Exactly.
And that it was all for naught. And I think the most poignant thing of the movie is that no matter what he did, no matter what his family did, they lost in a way,
Right.
because the daughter dies.
Yep. And the grandpa dies.
That character dies. Yep, the grandpa dies. And there are so many obstacles put in their way by, like for instance, they let that like yellow, whatever it was called, bomb at the end.
Right.
And
like
again, it's the government like just fucking everything up.
Yeah.
And it's like, how many obstacles can you put in front of this guy's way to get to what he needs to do? And I think it's just really poignant and interesting in the time that we live right now.
Oh, definitely. Like, which proves like his movies are timeless.
Yeah,
really. So after they kill the grandpa and they recapture him, the brother and sister get away, but this dad is captured and they keep trying to drug him. and he is not going down. And this tissue sampling scene, it is so brutal.
Oh,
and
it was, yeah.
And dark. And then I wondered if, you notice this, like he is finally telling this American guy, this white guy, where he's got crossed eyes. And he's telling him...
this is an X-Files episode.
Yes. He's telling him, no one listens to me. And, he finally thinks that this guy's listening to him and believes him. But nope, he doesn't either. And he's just kind of like messing with him, which just proves like he feels like he can't trust anybody.
Right. And he's low on that totem pole. Like he's just so, he's so deep down socioeconomically that even though there's lower, as they showed, but like he can't, and if we all know if he was in a different situation, he would get out of there and people would believe him, but that's not the way it works in the world. Not just, not just America, but it's interesting what she was saying in that article about how he was kind of saying that South Korea is sort of siphoning off of American culture, because I'm guessing, I don't know anything about South Korean culture, but I'm guessing that maybe when you take some of the good things about America, you take a lot of the bad things too.
Right.
And obviously we don't have our shit together.
Yeah.
So nobody should try to siphon anything off of us.
Exactly. Oh, I wrote down a quote from that little boy. He said, "I have no home, but many homes." And I thought that was sort of a positive way to look at the world. Like, I don't have one home, I have many, because, he and his dad were just going around living various places. And this is skipping to the end, but it warms my heart so much that the father adopted this little boy. And, like, the meal he makes him at the end, it's just so cute and sweet.
It's so cute. And they're just having this nice little life in the food stand, eating all the food. And, yeah, that, of course, is, like, the end that we need. Because obviously our film expectations, after we see that the daughter's alive, we feel like she's going to live.
Right.
I mean, I forgot, so I did not remember that. So I again went through the emotion of, oh shit, she is actually dead.
I know.
Which was hard. And, I have to say, if I were to rank these Bong Joon-ho movies, I would say that I probably still like Parasite and Mother better.
Right.
How do you feel?
Yeah, I feel the same. And what I wrote down as part of my reasoning was just that I wish that it had practical effects, and maybe that wasn't practical for what the creature needed to be, but that CGI took me out of it a lot.
Yeah, I get it. And a creature that large, I mean, some of the shots are really, the scope of them are really impressive, like the first time it comes out of the water and everybody is like running and screaming, and the human direction is really good. But a creature that large and everything, it sort of didn't, it's such an intimate movie in a lot of ways that it like didn't fit with the scenes, or it was hard to feel scared. Like, I don't necessarily get really scared of big, huge creatures like that. Right. I don't know.
Right.
I mean, I know, like, cut to me, like, saying, like, some creature was scary in the movie, obviously. But I guess this creature just wasn't scary.
Yeah. No, I agree. Something that was gross about it, when it was, like, puking out the bones into that cavern, it was so icky.
Yeah, that was kind of cool. That was kind of cool, actually.
And then, speaking of expectations, like, you think, like, okay, she is so badass, she tied all these clothes together, and she's going to make it and escape. But she doesn't. Like, the creature is there and catches her, and that was a nice unexpected twist.
Yeah, which I think time and time again we found with this filmmaker, that he's not going to give us exactly what we think is going to happen next, and that's really fun. And I'm glad that he has the backing of people, and he has the producers and the money that he is allowed to make movies, because sometimes, you don't want to watch a blockbuster movie where you know exactly everything that's going to happen. Right.
Another big moment that totally took me by surprise, because I didn't remember, is that this final showdown, it's happening at a protest, which, you know, we can absolutely relate to this so much right now. The brother goes to throw the final victorious Molotov cocktail, and it falls out of his hand. It falls backwards. And it's like, oh, you think like, okay, yep, done. But guess what? The sister comes in victorious with her arrow. And like a woman gets to have the climax.
Yeah, which was so cool. And, you know, it also, that moment when it falls out of his hands, I mean, what a jaw-dropping moment. And then it also kind of mirrors back to, in the beginning, when the dad thinks he grabbed his daughter, but he grabbed another girl's hand. And you realize that. And it's like these little human things, because these aren't heroes. These are human beings, and they make mistakes, and they fuck up. And so, that was really fun. And then she got to use her Olympic or her athletic thing, which was really cool. And I was just thinking back, like, there were a couple moments where I felt like the brothers kind of dismissed her and stuff like that. So it was kind of a great sort of revenge moment.
Yes. No, it was amazing. You know, there's all these little subplots we haven't talked about, but they, you know, go to these guys illegally to get this vehicle so that they can sneak in and be, you know, look like they're, I don't know, inspectors or something. And then this brother is trying to get the location of the last time that cell phone was used from this guy. And it's really a setup, but he escapes. Like, there's so many great action sequences that are unexpected, and also showing that power dynamic and class roles and who has access to information. And they end up having to bribe the guy just to drive past with that bucket of coins that he was saving up for the new cell phone.
Yes. I was like, oh no. And it also just showed, like, even though when they come and we meet some of these characters in the gymnasium, it seems like there's so much, like, alienation and strife among them, they really come together, and they're, like, so united to save this little girl. And it's, like, it's, again, that family dynamic that I think that the filmmaker really plays with a lot, and, like, makes you, I don't know, it's realism, because that is real, because family is complicated, yet they all love this little girl.
Right. Oh, so good. I really enjoyed the rewatch. Well,
yeah, me too. I didn't know, like, how I was going to feel, but right away I was like, okay, yeah, I think I'm going to enjoy watching this.
Should we rank it, or is there anything else you want to say about it?
No, let's rank it. I think we wax prophetic and philosophical. Wait, I can never say that word right.
Philosophical?
Philosophical. So I think we're ready.
Okay, so on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being you hated it, 10 being you think it's a perfect movie, what should our scale be?
Oh my! How about harked up slimy bones?
Ugh, perfect. How many slimy puked out bones do you give the host?
I'm going to give it 8 because I love that it has something to say. I love the direction. I love the acting. There's so many good things about it, but and it made me feel something, which was really important. But it didn't scare me as much as I would like to be scared. And even in a movie like Mother, which was to compare, which was not in, it wouldn't seem like it'd be as scary. It actually like made me feel more frightened. So I'm going to give this movie an 8.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I'm giving it a 9. And like I said, I don't think it's a perfect movie just because like the CGI took me out of it. But again, also, like you said, Mother and Parasite both made me feel more things. But this movie is so solid. It's so good. And I'm glad we revisited it.
Yeah, me too. It's fun to watch things when you've gotten longer in the tooth and we have a little bit more, well, we've seen more horror movies under our belt, and we know a little bit more, and we know more about the filmmaker and everything. So it's fun to like circle back to these things.
Now, I am looking forward to hopefully writing about this movie in an upcoming book. We'll see. But the science of how mutations occur because of human pollution
Yeah.
or whatever. I mean, I know that there are real examples, and wouldn't that be fascinating and terrifying to learn about?
Yes, and it makes me think of when they have Mr. Burns over for dinner, I think, in The Simpsons.
Yes.
And there's like the three-eyed fish, and he's got to pretend like it's normal to eat it or something.
Oh, yes.
Because he's been putting his nuclear waste in the lake or whatever, so yeah.
Oh, and that also reminds me when he's like glowing and they think it's an alien, but it's just him glowing, in the forest.
Yeah.
Oh, The Simpsons. Now, I was wondering if you tweeted about this and put it on social media, but would you talk to everyone about your favorite new Stephen King short story? If you can tell us about it without giving anything away, is that possible?
Sure. Yes. Well, I'll do a little deeper dive on one of my book corners, but the short story is called Life of Chuck. And have you read it yet?
Not yet. So that's why I don't want any spoilers,
Okay,
especially for me.
Okay, no, I'm not gonna give any spoilers. What I'm gonna say is the reason that I liked it so much. Okay, I'm gonna try to say this as eloquently as possible without saying. Okay, the reason I like it so much and why I love literature and film and all expressions of art is because of what it has you confront about the universe. And that short story has you confront something very interesting about the universe and very, complicated. Yet he does it in a short story. And that's something that Stephen King can do really well, is like get to the heart of the matter. And he also can go on and on and on. But in this short story, he has you kind of feel your mind growing and expanding. And that's all I'll say.
Wow. Okay. Well, if that doesn't make you want to go out and read that story immediately, friends, I don't know what will. But
right.
Yeah. No, but I appreciate that because, a lot of times people are like, oh, another book of short stories. Like if I've read one, I've read them all, from Stephen King or any author. But really,
sure.
It proves that even our favorite authors can keep surprising us or at least keep pleasing us.
Well, exactly. And like we were just saying about with revisiting the movie and sort of like having a little more wisdom under our belt. As Stephen King, and I don't think everything Stephen King ever wrote is amazing. Like he's had some duds, just like everybody. But as he gets older, I'm so enjoying his perspective on life and what you can see him learning things and him taking away what's important and things like that. So it's fun to discover the world along with an author, especially one as prolific as Stephen King.
Yes. Oh, that's so great. Okay. Well, I'm very excited to go and read it. That's something though. It's funny because since quarantine started, there's certain ways of escapism that I can very easily like lay down and watch some crappy reality show or a show I've seen or a movie I've seen already, and it feels very comforting.
Yeah.
But sort of tackling some new movies or TV shows, or even reading a new book feels less comfortable for me at this moment in time.
I get it.
And I don't know, if that's true for everybody, but so I've been putting off starting some new things, but I really should.
No, that's okay. But also do what feels good right now. And, there's time, there will hopefully be a long time to get into all the new content. I think a lot of people are like going back and watching old sitcoms and old movies and stuff because it feels good, because right now I think what's so scary about the world is we don't really know what's coming tomorrow, and maybe that makes us feel nervous about trying something new, and that's okay.
Yes. Well said. Well, Horror Rewind listeners, we are hoping that you are all well and safe, and until next time, we will see you scrolling through the horror section.